Hotels, airlines, resorts, they're all suffering immense pain as the pandemic grinds on and people stay home. Despite the pandemic, more than 1 million people flew each day during Christmas week, but that traffic is going to tail off once the holidays end. Plus, things could get more complicated once the world begins to open back up. For example, there's already chatter about requiring people to have a vaccine passport to fly, proving that they've been inoculated. There are a lot of open questions, especially as we wait for those mass vaccinations. But one thing is certain, things are going to look a lot different this year when it comes to travel than they've looked in prior years. For more, we turn to Pauline Frommer. Pauline is the editorial director of FrommerMedia, the well-known travel book and guide series. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You know, with the start of the year and the promise of vaccines eventually, people are beginning to think about traveling again. First question, though, is what's the state of the industry right now? A lot of fears that the sector could have been devastated. Airlines, hotels, cruise liners, tourist attractions could have gone out of business. Have they?
Well, many people think that up to a third of the hotels in the United States could go belly up before this pandemic is done. We're also going to see shrinking routes for the airlines. I don't think we're going to see any U.S. airlines go out of business entirely. We will see that in other parts of the globe. But yes, it's been a devastating time for the travel industry.
When we think about travel in 2021, we're going to have to think about it in two parts, pre-vaccine and post-vaccine. For the pre-vaccine part, and I need to be very clear about this, experts say we shouldn't be traveling for leisure and should reduce our business travel. But for those who aren't willing to wait, they should continue to expect lots of restrictions and limitations and other requirements like those negative tests?
Absolutely. Yes. And I would second those experts. You are not only foolish in terms of your own safety, you're putting others at risk by traveling right now. We all need to stay home. That being said, there will be many differences coming to travel, even when people start being vaccinated, because it's going to take a while for the entire population to be vaccinated. So we're expecting things like advanced reservations at amusement parks and museums to be around for a while, because social distancing will probably be a thing for a while. We're expecting people to be turning to nature vacations, because probably we're going to have to keep our masks on even when vaccines are underway. I don't know when that's going to end. So a lot of people know they can go out into nature, take off that mask, and have a little bit more freedom. So it's going to be a very interesting process. And I don't think there's going to be a date when a light switch gets flicked and everything goes back to normal. It's going to be kind of jerkier than that.
So let's start thinking about post-vaccine travel agendas. It obviously requires guessing when you think you're going to be vaccinated, when the place you want to go has been able to turn the corner on the virus. So looking for advice on planning for post-vaccine travel, because the whole world's going to want to get up and go somewhere. I assume most people are going to focus on the second half of the year, if not later. Airlines, as you mentioned, are still going to be flying, but who knows how their route and schedule structures are going to change. How much and how should people deal with that possibility if they're making plans?
If you're making plans and you're going to what is called a smaller gateway rather than one of the big hubs, you should expect it's going to take many more flights to get there than it has in the past. It may also cost more. We are expecting far less business travel than there was in the past because so many businesses have been getting used to doing everything over Zoom. The problem with that for vacationers is business travelers were always wildly overcharged, but what they spent underwrote what the rest of us spent. So we could see sharp increases in airfares and other parts of the travel experience.
Hotels seem to be something of a total mystery. I mean, if you try to book at a small property or a small resort, who knows if they'll survive to the fall? Big chains are probably going to wind up closing some of their hotels. An Airbnb seems even riskier. Is it just too soon to start trying to look for something for hotels?
Actually, Airbnb has been doing pretty well
Really?
considering because a lot of people are using Airbnbs for what are called relocation vacations. People are realizing, oh, I can't go away for a week, but I'm working remotely. So why don't I just go away for 3 months? So actually, Airbnb turned a profit last quarter, bizarrely enough. In terms of the differences between small hotels and large chains, you have to remember that the large chains are all franchised. So there's no way of knowing really if the owner of a particular franchise will be more financially viable than a small hotel. So you can't really look at it that way in terms of which properties are going to survive and which will go under.
If you're looking for the safest possible plans, would the biggest destinations be something like Disney World and Las Vegas aren't going to go anywhere?
Well, let's hope not. But there are big changes in those places. Disney fired tens of thousands of workers a couple of months ago. And that means that a lot of the attractions for the little ones, for the really little children, the ones who weren't tall enough to go on the rides, those have disappeared because a lot of those were interactive uh, uh,
Mhm.
experiences, and those characters have been fired. So the key thing is you're going to want to do your research before you travel anywhere. And you're going to want to go to a journalistic source like Frommers.com, like all the major newspaper travel sites. They will be keeping up to date on what's open, what's closed, and more importantly, what's changed.
Last question is really where we need your advice, Pauline. If you make plans and something goes wrong, either you don't get the vaccine as quickly as you think, or the business you have a reservation with goes out of business. From a vacation standpoint, that's a headache, but there are other options. From a financial standpoint, you could lose your deposit or hit, change fees. It could really be a strain. What advice would you give in terms of financial protection for travel plans that could go wrong? For example, credit cards, would they be able to help if your deposit, the place you put a deposit on, goes belly up?
Most credit cards will help. And the smartest thing to do is to purchase your travel through a credit card. But talk to your credit card company first. You may have several in your wallet, and one may be better in terms of covering insolvency. Sometimes travel insurance can help, but not all policies cover when a business goes belly up. So you want to make sure you're actually covered for the things that could happen.
Pauline Frommer is the co-president of FrommerMedia. She's also the editorial director of Frommer's Guidebooks. Pauline, thank you so much. Happy New Year. Have a healthy and safe one.
Happy New Year.
And up next, we're going to remember those we lost over the past year.